You know the outline of the story: bleeding walls, swarms of flies, and demonic voices driving a family out of their new home in the dead of night. Those quarter-moon windows at 112 Ocean Avenue are universally recognized. But that famous ghost story is a complete fabrication. A family massacre occurred here a year before anyone claimed to see a ghost. On November 13, 1974, 6 members of the DeFeo family were shot to death in their beds while they slept. The killer was the eldest son, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr., known as Butch. He was severely addicted to heroin and LSD, and trapped in a home defined by his father's physical abuse. Butch had already attempted to shoot his father once before. He used a .35 caliber Marlin lever-action hunting rifle. Firing this weapon indoors generates a deafening blast. Yet across 6 distinct shots, no victim showed a defensive wound. Nobody got out of bed. And in a tightly packed suburban neighborhood, no one reported hearing a thing. Police solved the case quickly. Under interrogation, Butch confessed to the killings. At his 1975 trial, his defense team tried to claim he was legally insane and acting on auditory hallucinations. The jury rejected that entirely, convicting him on 6 counts of second-degree murder. By all measures, Amityville was a legally closed human tragedy, driven by domestic dysfunction. Law enforcement moved quickly to close the books on a case that appeared to be a straightforward familicide. To understand how a single shooter could do this, we have to look at DeFeo's clinical diagnosis: antisocial personality disorder. This isn't a state of confusion. It's a pathology defined by manipulation and a complete lack of empathy. After the killings, DeFeo took a shower and went to work at his grandfather's car dealership. He spent the afternoon calling home to feign concern in front of his coworkers, and even attended a pre-scheduled meeting with his probation officer. These actions require executive function. He was systematically constructing an alibi in real time, a behavior that contradicts the idea of a disorganized or unplanned psychotic break. While his remorseless behavior explains how he could live with the crime, the sheer tidiness of his post-crime routine stands in total contrast to the physical impossibilities detectives left behind in the bedrooms. All 6 victims were found face down in bed. There were no defensive wounds, and toxicology reports proved the family had not been drugged. A clue to how this happened was buried in the evidence police found in Brooklyn. Inside that pillowcase was an empty leather holster for a .38 caliber handgun, a weapon that was never recovered during the 1974 investigation. Decades later, a dive team used electromagnetic sensors to sweep the canal behind the house. They recovered the decayed firing mechanism of a .38 caliber revolver buried in the mud, pointing to a second weapon at the scene. By ignoring these acoustic gaps and the missing handgun, simply to secure a quick, convenient confession from the suspect, the original investigation left the most important questions about the murders unanswered. From his cell, DeFeo exploited those investigative holes. He spent 40 years changing his story to suit his appeals, eventually claiming that demonic voices in the house had commanded him to kill. Those claims provided an opening for opportunists. They took the gaps in a real murder case and filled them with fiction designed for a book deal. 1 month after the conviction, George and Kathy Lutz bought the DeFeo property. Because of the murders, they got the waterfront estate at a massive discount, paying just $80,000. But even with the deal, they were deeply over-leveraged and quickly faced severe financial strain. Around the same time, Butch DeFeo's defense attorney, William Weber, was managing his own financial ambitions. He was actively trying to secure a lucrative book deal based on his client's crimes. Years later, Weber admitted exactly what happened with the Lutzes. He confessed under oath to the press that they invented the haunting over many bottles of wine. They took real-life details from the crime scene and transposed them into a ghost story. A struggling homeowner and an opportunistic lawyer needed cash.
Together, they built a highly profitable lie. Let's cross-examine the claims that made them rich. The Lutzes claimed they endured 28 days of demonic terror, repeatedly calling the police for rescue. This chart maps the police activity for the address during that exact period. The dispatch logs show absolutely zero calls originating from the residence. The book claimed invisible forces tore heavy doors off their hinges, and massive footprints appeared in the snow. Except climatological records prove not a single inch of snow fell in Amityville during those weeks. And investigators found the original door hinges showed zero physical damage. Then there was the emotional core of the narrative, a local Catholic priest who was allegedly attacked by an invisible force and driven from the home. The actual priest, depicted in the book, later took the stand in civil litigation. Under oath, he testified that the haunting claims were a total fabrication. Every checkable fact was false. But the media and publishing industry actively ignored the police records and the weather data. A supernatural thriller sells paperbacks. A story about a son murdering his parents does not. The financial bet paid off. The 1977 book sold over 10 million copies. 2 years later, the Hollywood adaptation grossed $86 million, making it the highest-grossing independent film of its era. That single movie spawned a multi-decade horror franchise. Sequels and remakes continually funneled millions into executives' pockets. Meanwhile, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue has been sold multiple times. Dozens of people have lived there. Every single subsequent family has reported absolutely zero paranormal activity. The address is globally recognized as a haunted house, a destination for true crime tourism. Yet there is almost complete cultural amnesia regarding Ronald, Louise, Don, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew. Mundane, capitalistic greed monetized this massacre, ensuring the world remembered the ghost story while the victims were systematically forgotten. The enduring legacy of this case is how easily a documented truth can be erased. This case remains a warning of what happens when a justice system rushes to close a flawed investigation. The resulting evidentiary void was filled by a commercial myth,